for staying with us. Now, Finance Minister eNCA announced that VAT will increase to 16% over the next 2 years. Last month, the minister's address was delayed following clashes around an initial 2 percentage point hike. So what does the hike mean for the average South African? For more on this, we're joined this hour by Debt Rescue Annaline Fund Poel. Thank you very much for your time. Let's maybe start with the material implication of a 0.5 increase in VAT this year. How badly would it be felt on the pocket?
Good afternoon. Yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot if we just say, well, it's 0.5%. But realistically speaking, it means it's everything that we buy except for a small handful of goods that are zero VATed. Everything is going to be costing us more. So anything that we buy is now, in essence, instead of being at the 15% rate, it's going to be 15.5. And that's going to add up really fast. I mean, for every single piece we buy, it's going to cost us so much more in what we purchase, and it's affecting every single South African. And that is a major concern, because as it is, we're struggling still with the after effect of a cost of living crisis. Goods are incredibly expensive for us as South Africans to purchase. Nothing's prices are coming down, and now it's actually going to become more expensive because of VAT. So absolutely not a good thing for South Africans.
So how do then households navigate this particular new playing field with a 15.5 VAT on all the items that they buy?
Well, more than ever, what we're going to have to do is we're going to literally have to know where every cent goes, because, you know, it also coincides with round about the same time where electricity prices are going to be going up by 12.7% now in April. So the only way we can navigate this is through very, very careful planning, or ultimately budgeting, by sitting and seeing where is every cent that I earn or that's coming in, where is it going out, and where can I make changes? What can I bring down? What can I let go of? Maybe I've still got some luxury expenses in my budget that I don't use or don't need, etc. To just try and make finances balanced, so that we don't end up in a situation where we end up in a debt spiral ultimately.
And are we likely to see that consumers, given that the cost of a living crisis does persist, Annaline, that they will continue to perhaps rely on debt for everyday items or expenses?
Absolutely. We're already seeing that. We're already seeing a huge number of consumers who are having to turn to debt to put food on the table, where there isn't nearly enough money to pay bills and normal living expenses, buy food, pay for transport, electricity, etc., with their income as it is. Debt costs are still phenomenally high. We know we've got an interest rate announcement coming this week as well, but the cost of our debt is expensive. For those that have debt, which is unfortunately a large percentage of us. And then we have this crisis of everything already being so expensive because of inflation. Now we have VAT adding to that. And again, as I said, it affects everybody. So it's definitely, it's going to worsen the situation of consumers relying on debt ultimately to make it through the month.
And as Debt Rescue, Annaline, are you seeing trends that become that perhaps financial institutions who do give debt to households, they're becoming a little bit more stringent with the lending based on the desperation of consumers, and then also the inability to potentially not be able to pay back?
Well, obviously, the credit providers do have criteria legislatively placed on them in terms of when they do give credit, what the criteria are that they need to meet, the affordability, looking at the avoiding situations of reckless credit being granted, etc. So as it is, credit providers are obviously already having to adhere to that. But I think it can also that now more than ever they are going to look at how much debt you currently have already, and what the probability is for their own reasons that you would be able to repay it, and that you might not already be struggling with an over-indebtedness situation. So I think it's something that is being monitored very closely, and obviously it does become a risk to a credit provider if the consumer can't afford to repay it. So yeah, unfortunately, I do think that these are contributing factors, but the reality is South Africans are struggling and have no alternative means.
They are struggling indeed. If if you will, Annaline, the options that struggling households would have to perhaps find some way to manage the high cost of living with the higher VAT, but also the high debt that they're also exposed to?
Well, I think the most important thing is establish what your financial circumstances are. It's unfortunately that situation where we have to be honest with ourselves and sit down and to take books and go and say, where is my money going? Be honest about it. Look for opportunities to make changes. Shop smarter, bring down costs where we can on things we no longer need, on expenses we no longer need. But ultimately, if all of that is being done, which we know very, very large percentage of South Africans have done, is to look at something like debt counseling. Debt counseling is part of law. It's there to assist over-indebted consumers and help them find a way to repay their debts in a more affordable manner whilst still being able to afford their necessary living expenses.
Thank you very much for those insights, as always. Annaline van der Poel from Debt Rescue joining us this afternoon. Still to come on All Angles, we focus on a